The talking drum began at sunrise and then went silent in the middle of a long note. The whole village hushed. Palm leaves stopped whispering. Even the goats seemed to listen. From the palace balcony, Oba Nosa stepped forward, staff in hand, gold rings shining like small suns. His voice was deep and steady. "On the next new moon," he said, "Prince Osaigbovo will choose a bride. The maidens will present themselves before the people. The one who carries herself with the most grace and presence will stand first before the prince." The words were simple, but the market turned them into fire. Women gasped, men whistled, aunties began to whisper, "Grace and presence means shape." Teen boys laughed, pointing, measuring the air with their hands. By noon, the sentence had changed in every mouth. "The prince will pick the woman with the biggest behind." At the back of the crowd stood a young woman with a calm face and bright eyes, Esosa. She heard the whisper and felt the air grow heavy around her. She touched the back of her wrapper as if she could press a hill into being. It was flat, the way it had always been. Laughter, soft and sharp, moved through the line behind her like a thin knife. Esosa kept her chin still, but her heart shook. You're watching African Tales by Emma Day. Please like, share, and subscribe so more people can enjoy and learn from our stories. The drum sounded again. The day moved on. But for Esosa, time did not. It stood there with her, in that exact spot, asking a quiet question. What will you do now? When Esosa was a child, people called her many names. Some were sweet, some were not. "Morning Star," her mother used to say, touching her forehead before school. "Long Leaf," the girls at the stream would tease, giggling behind their palms. "Straight Back," the boys would chant, a sing-song that followed her down the path. Esosa learned early how to walk through noise without letting it enter her. She fetched water and helped elders. She braided children's hair so neatly that mothers said, "Your hands are gentle. They turn stubborn hair into silk." She sang in the evenings, soft songs that made tired people smile. Two other young women always seemed to stand near her story. Emma Day, warm and honest, was the friend who said the right words at the right time. She knew when to joke and when to hold a hand. She saw Esosa beyond shape and shadow, and she loved her like a sister. Etohan was bright like a festival, laughter quick, steps light, eyes that caught light the way water catches the sun. People praised her often. "See the way she walks," they would say. "See her good figure." Etohan did not tease Esosa, but her smile sometimes carried a gentle pride that stung like pepper. Life was simple. Morning work, afternoon trade, evening stories. Then the drums paused, and Oba Nosa spoke. In one sentence, the ground under Esosa's feet moved. "Grace and presence," the Oba said. But the village heard. Curves and sighs. By sunset, the square became a mirror for every mind. Girls practiced their steps. Aunties adjusted wrappers higher at the waist. Some laughed and said, "This is our time." Others sighed and said, "What of us who carry our beauty in quiet places?" Esosa walked home with Emma Day. "My friend," Emma Day said softly, "don't let this thing swallow you." Esosa smiled, but it was the kind of smile that tries to hold rain. "I am fine." "Say the truth." Esosa looked at the long path ahead. The trees, the evening light, the chickens scratching the dust like little drummers. "What if this is my one door?" she whispered. "What if I don't enter, and the door closes forever?" Emma Day stopped. There are many doors in this world. Some are made of wood, some are made of people, some are made of time. The right door will open for you. But will Prince Osaigbovo wait for the right door? Esosa asked, and her smile fell away. That night, she lay awake and counted the names people gave her. Morning Star, Long Leaf, Straight Back. She wondered which one the future would choose and which one would choose her back. The next week was a river that ran fast. The market filled with talk. Tailors whispered about the royal parade. Mothers measured daughters with their eyes. Some girls began to eat heavy meals late at night, as if food could build a mountain by morning. Others tied their wrappers tighter, practicing a new walk that made their hips speak. Esosa moved through all this, like someone visiting a new country, watching, listening, learning the shape of people's thoughts. She kept working. She greeted elders. She carried goods. She did not answer the jokes that floated near her ears like flies that refused to leave. "Straight back," someone chuckled at the well. "She will wave from the back row," another said. Esosa bent, lifted her pot, and walked away. But inside, something began to scratch against her heart, soft at first, then steady. It was not anger. It was not envy. It was the fear that grace and presence had been turned into a game of shape and show, and that her life would be decided by a room where she had no voice. That evening, under the mango tree, Itohan joined Esosa and Emadai. "You heard the latest?" Itohan asked, eyes bright. "The palace women will visit each quarter to see the maidens practice. They will note posture, dance, and how we carry ourselves in public." Emadai clapped once. "Good. At least it's not only body." Itohan tilted her head. But everyone knows what the prince likes." "Do you?" Emadai teased. "Do you not watch?" Itohan replied, laughing softly. "The prince is a man." "Men are men." Esosa's eyes dropped to her hands. They were good hands, steady, clever, kind. They could turn thread into beauty. They could carry heavy things without complaint. But hands were not hips, and in this season, the world wanted hips. That night, a different whisper reached Esosa's door. A cousin visiting from the city spoke in low tones. "There is a clinic," she said. "A place where people go to change what they don't like. People add here, remove there, shape this, shift that." Esosa listened, sitting very still. "It is not cheap," the cousin added. "And it is not small. You must think well. There is risk, but many go." They returned. New. Emadai's eyes widened. "New how?" "New in the ways this world sees." The cousin left a small card on the table, just a name and a number. The card was thin, but it weighed as much as a stone in Esosa's palm. When the door closed, Emadai spoke first. "Throw it away." Esosa turned the card over and over. "What if this is the door?" "Some doors open to a room with no air," Emadai said. Esosa did not answer. Outside, the moon sat quiet like a white calabash in the sky. Days passed. The palace women came to watch maidens dance in small circles. They smiled politely and made marks in their books. The crowd made louder marks with their mouths. Compliments flew like bright cloth. Mockery dropped like stones. Esosa danced with a soft grace that came from inside her bones, not from any practice. Some nodded. Many did not look long. Their eyes walked past her, searching for hills and valleys. That evening, Esosa visited Mama Uyi, the old seamstress who had mended half the village and kept a quiet, wise heart. "Mama," Esosa asked, "what is presence?" Mama Uyi threaded a needle, her hands steady as morning. "Presence is the sound your spirit makes when it enters a room. It is not your hair or your dress. It is the peace you bring, the respect you give, the courage you carry." "Then why is everyone counting shapes?" Esosa whispered. Mama Uyi smiled sadly. "Because eyes are closer than hearts." The next morning, Esosa went to the edge of the village where the road stretched like a brown ribbon toward the city. She stood there a long time, listening to goats, wind, and her own breath. Then she turned and walked to a small courtyard where a moneylender kept a long book of long names. "I need to travel," Esosa said. "To buy goods?" he asked. "To buy a future," she replied. He looked at her, at the strong line of her back, at the quiet fire in her eyes. "Future is expensive." "I will pay," she said. He named a number that made the room tilt. She nodded anyway. She signed where he tapped. His smile was thin. He closed the book. At home, Emade watched her pack. "Come back to me safe," Emade said, holding her hand with both of hers. "I will," Esosa said, even though her voice had to climb a hill to reach the word. On the bus to the city, the windows held moving pictures. Fields, streams, houses, faces. Esosa held the clinic card like a small steering wheel inside her palm, as if it would help her turn away at the last moment if she wanted to. The city rose like a story told too fast. Noise, light, speed. The clinic was clean and smelled like lemon and cold air. A woman at the desk smiled with her lips, but not with her eyes. "Name?" "Esosa." "What do you want?" Esosa swallowed. "I want to be seen." The woman clicked a pen. "You want enhancement?" "I want a chance," Esosa said, voice soft but firm. They took her to a small room with white walls and careful posters. A doctor with kind hands and careful words sat across from her. "You must know," he said slowly, "this is not a small thing. There is risk. There is healing. There is the burden of change. Are you ready?" Esosa looked at her hands again, the hands that turned thread into beauty, that carried water, that braided hair. "I am ready," she whispered. "I am just tired of being a shadow in my own life." He nodded. "We will do things the safe way. It will take time. You must follow every instruction. You must rest. You must not rush. I will do everything," she promised. At the guest room she rented, the night felt heavier than any blanket. She prayed the small prayers she knew. She thought of Prince Osaigbovo, not as a face or a crown, but as a chance to step out of laughter's shadow. She thought of Obanosa and the balcony and the drum that had paused. She thought of Emade's eyes, full of worry and love. Morning would come, choices would become flesh. Esosa closed her eyes and asked the oldest question a human heart can ask. "When I become what the world wants, will I still be who I am?" The city hummed like a restless drum. Cars wove in and out of each other like impatient dancers. Street vendors shouted. Neon signs blinked. But inside the clinic, everything was silent. White walls, white coats, white light. It was as if the world outside had been pressed mute. Esosa sat on the edge of a narrow bed. A paper gown covered her frame, but she still felt exposed. Her heart beat too loud for such a quiet place. A nurse adjusted her IV line. The doctor stood with his glasses low on his nose, speaking calmly. "You must rest well after this," he said. "No heavy lifting. No rushing back to show the world. This is not magic. It is medicine. It needs time to heal." Esosa nodded quickly. She wanted to say, "I will do everything right," but her voice stayed small. They explained again. They asked for her signature. Her hand trembled slightly as she signed the papers. The pen scratched her name into the page like a promise she couldn't take back. The lights above blurred as the anesthesia drifted through her. The world became heavy, then light, then nothing. When she woke, it was not to music or applause. It was to pain, a dull, dragging pain that pulled her whole body into itself. The nurse spoke gently. "Don't move too fast." Her breath came shallow. Her fingers clutched the sheet. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, not for beauty, not for attention, but for life. In the days that followed, she healed slowly. Each morning, she checked the mirror, waiting for change. Bandages became lighter, steps became longer, and the reflection began to answer the question her heart had always asked. What if? When Esosa finally returned to the village, she wore a wrapper tied in the old way, but her body spoke a new language. People who once walked past her without notice now stopped mid-step. Women's eyes widened, lips parted. Men dropped their calabashes mid-laughter. "Is this not Esosa?" someone whispered at the market. "Esosa?" "No, this is someone else," another replied. But when she smiled, they knew. It was her, The same face, the same bright eyes. Only the shape had changed. That day, the market became her stage. Old mockers grew silent. Former rivals studied her with a mix of envy and awe. Children followed behind her as if she carried a secret they wanted to touch. Etohan was the first to greet her openly. "Esosa," she said, her voice carrying both surprise and careful admiration. "The city has treated you well." Esosa smiled. "The city gave me what the village refused." Etohan's laugh was thin. "Well, let us see what the palace says when the time comes." Emade, however, hugged her tightly. "You are still you," she whispered. "Don't let anyone make you forget that." But even as Emade spoke, Esosa felt a shift. She was no longer the shadow at the back of the crowd. She was the light people turned to watch. And for the first time, she believed the Oba's words. Grace and presence could be hers. That evening, drums echoed from a distance. People talked in circles about the coming royal selection. Esosa sat outside her mother's hut, listening. A quiet voice inside her said, "You did it." You opened the door, but another voice asked, "What did it cost?" Days turned into weeks, and the village could not stop looking at Esosa. Wherever she walked, whispers followed like shadows. "See her now. She will be queen. The prince's eyes will never leave her." Who can compete with that? Even men who once ignored her now found reasons to pass near her house. They greeted too loudly, laughed too long, offered help she didn't ask for. Women shook their heads but still glanced back when she walked away. Esosa carried herself with quiet dignity. She didn't speak much, but she felt the power of presence, something she had never known before. Yet inside, she was learning a new kind of fear. What if this presence was fragile? What if it slipped away? At the evening gatherings, maidens danced before the elders. Esosa danced too, her steps graceful, her figure undeniable. All eyes followed her. Even the palace messengers who stood at the edge of the crowd seemed unable to look away. Emade walked home with her afterward. "Esosa," she said, "they look at you now. But I worry. Not every eye that follows is full of admiration. Some carry envy. Some carry questions." Esosa looked at her friend's gentle face. "And what about the prince's eyes?" she asked softly. Emade smiled faintly. "The prince is a man, but he is also a son of Obanosa. His eyes will search for what is true, not just what is new." Esosa said nothing. Deep in her chest, her heart beat faster at the thought of Prince Osaigbovo. She imagined the day of the grand selection, the drums, the crowd, the moment the prince's gaze would meet hers. She touched her wrapper lightly, feeling the curve beneath, and whispered to herself, "This time, they will not laugh." The palace of Obanosa was not just a home of royalty. It was the heart of the kingdom. Its tall gates carved with ancestral symbols, its courtyards paved with smooth stones, its drums that could send messages to villages miles away. Everything about the palace breathed both power and expectation. When the Oba's declaration about the prince's marriage spread, the palace began to stir like a hive touched by sunlight. Every day, new decorations arrived, rolls of bright fabrics, baskets of beads, jars of palm wine, and drums tuned to perfection. Carpenters hammered, dancers rehearsed, chiefs and elders whispered among themselves about what kind of bride the young prince would choose. Prince Osaigbovo himself moved quietly through these preparations. He was tall, with eyes that seemed to see past surfaces. Yet, the villagers only saw one thing. His father said grace and presence, but everyone believes shape will decide. And so the palace walls carried endless talk. In the market, women pointed at Esosa. If the prince is truly a man, his eyes will rest there. Others shook their heads, whispering, "But what about her story? How did she return so suddenly changed?" Esosa felt the weight of every glance. Each day she walked with careful steps, her wrapper swaying, her chin lifted. Children followed her. Young men stumbled over greetings. Some women admired. Others bit their lips with envy. One evening, she sat with Emma beneath the moon. The air was cool. The stars blinked like old storytellers. Emma turned to her. "Esosa, are you happy?" Esosa hesitated. "I am noticed." "That is not the same." Esosa's voice softened. "When you spend your whole life as a shadow, sometimes even the wrong light feels like the sun." Emma looked at her friend and sighed. "I just hope the light does not burn." The palace drums beat again that night. Slow, steady, promising. The village knew the day of selection was drawing near. As the weeks passed, Esosa discovered that being admired carried its own burden. Every movement, every gesture was now measured, whispered about, and weighed. At the stream, girls paused their chatter when she arrived. Some smiled too brightly. Others whispered behind her back. One said, "Look at her now, walking as if she is already the queen." Another muttered, "If the prince chooses her, he will choose a stranger's body, not her own." Esosa kept her face calm, but inside her heart rippled with unease. The men, too, behaved differently. Those who once ignored her now offered help she never asked for, carrying her water pots, offering to walk her home, bringing gifts of cola nuts and palm wine. Some did it with genuine admiration, others with a greed for her newfound attention. She thanked them politely, but kept her distance. Still, she could feel their eyes follow her long after she walked away. Even Atohan, once her confident rival, became strangely quiet. At a gathering, Atohan danced boldly, the crowd clapping in rhythm. Yet when Esosa stepped forward, the noise shifted. All claps grew louder, all eyes leaned closer. Atohan's smile flickered just for a moment. That night, Atohan said in a half-joking tone, "Esosa, you will soon forget us when you enter the palace." Esosa laughed softly. "I cannot forget the ground that raised me." But when she lay awake that night, she wondered, would they forget me if I had never changed? At last, the day came when the maidens of the land were invited to the palace courtyard for a formal presentation. It was not yet the final selection, but a gathering where the elders and the prince himself would watch, listen, and quietly take note. The morning sun rose golden over the palace. Drummers beat softly at the gates as girls lined up in their finest wrappers and beads. The air smelled of fresh palm wine and roasted meat, but beneath it all was the sharp scent of nervous sweat and hidden ambition. Oba Nosa sat on his throne, his staff resting across his knees, his gaze deep and unreadable. Beside him stood Prince Osaigbovo, tall, graceful, his hands folded calmly. He did not smile. He did not frown. His eyes simply observed. When Esosa entered the courtyard, a hush moved across the crowd. She walked slowly, every step measured, her chin high, her wrapper swaying. The beads on her neck caught the light. Whispers rose and fell like waves. Oba Nosa's eyes narrowed, as if he had seen her story even before her steps ended. But it was Prince Osaigbovo's gaze that pierced deeper. He did not look only at her body, as the crowd did. His eyes rested on her face, her eyes, her silence. For a long moment they looked at each other, and the world seemed to hold its breath. The drums beat again. Other maidens danced, laughed, sang. The courtyard became alive with color and sound. But still, the villagers could not stop glancing at Esosa. Later, when she stepped aside, Emma whispered, "He looked at you." Esosa's heart trembled. "Did he?" "Yes," Emma said, "but not like the others." "He looked as though he wanted to know who you really are." Esosa pressed her palm against her chest. For the first time since her return, she felt not only noticed, but truly seen. and that frightened her more than the laughter ever had. At first, it was only a small ache. Esosa thought it was nothing. A little tightness at her waist, a sting when she bent too low, a strange heaviness when she walked too far. She ignored it, covering the feeling with bright smiles and steady steps. But at night, when the drums were silent and only the crickets spoke, the pain deepened. It was a slow, dragging weight, like something inside her body was not resting right. She turned in bed, pressing her palm against her side, whispering to herself, "It will pass. It must pass. This is the price for a crown." The next morning, she stood before the mirror and adjusted her wrapper. Outwardly, she was perfect. Her shape admired, her walk admired, her face glowing. But deep inside, she knew something was not sitting well. One evening, while she was seated outside her hut, Emade brought roasted yam. "Eat," she said. "You need strength." Esosa forced a bite. Emade studied her closely. "Your smile is not the same. Your steps are heavy. Tell me the truth, my sister. Are you well?" "I am fine," Esosa answered too quickly. "No," Emade said softly. "Fine does not hide in the night and press its side. Fine does not wince when bending." Esosa's eyes dropped. She whispered, "I have no choice. If I stop now, everything I endured will mean nothing." Emade touched her hand. "Better nothing than your life." But Esosa shook her head. "The crown will cover the pain." Yet even as she said it, her heart trembled with doubt. Not long after, another shadow returned, the moneylender. He was not a man who forgot debts. His book was long, his ink dark, his smile thin. He came to her quietly in the evening when the market was closing. His voice was low, but his words sharp. "Esosa," he said, "the time for patience is over. Where is my money?" She lowered her eyes. "I am arranging it. Soon I will pay you." "Soon?" His laugh was bitter. "I lent you enough to change your life." She clenched her fists inside her wrapper. "I will not fail." He smiled thinly, closing his book. "We shall see." When he walked away, Esosa's heart pounded. For the first time, she realized that her crown was not only resting on her head. It was tied with strings others could pull. That night she wept silently, turning her face to the wall so her mother would not hear. The crown she dreamed of suddenly felt heavier than ever. The morning of the final ceremony arrived like thunder after a long silence. The palace drums began before dawn, rolling through every village, summoning people to witness history. Stalls closed early, pathways filled, and even the birds seemed to circle above the palace roof as if they too wanted to see who would wear the crown. Esosa rose with trembling hands. Her wrapper was the brightest she had ever worn, her beads heavy against her neck. Her mother prayed quietly in the corner, whispering words Esosa barely heard. Her body still ached. The tightness in her side had not left her. She wrapped her arms around herself and whispered, "Endure, Esosa. Just one more day. Endure, and the crown will be yours." Outside, Emade walked beside her, carrying calmness like a shield. "Walk steady," she said. "Look straight. Do not let your fears show." But Esosa's fears walked with her. The moneylender was at the palace gate, his thin smile sharper than a blade. He leaned close as she passed. "Remember my money, queen-to-be," he whispered. "The palace may crown you, but I can strip you with my words." Her heart pounded, but she forced her chin high. "Not today," she told herself. "He will not steal this day from me." The courtyard was already full when she entered. Oba Nosa sat upon his throne, his crown heavy with coral beads, his gaze stern. Beside him stood Prince Osegbovo, tall, handsome, his expression unreadable. Chiefs lined the hall, villagers crowded the gates, and the air throbbed with expectation. The maidens were called one by one. They danced, they sang, They bowed. Some drew cheers, others drew polite silence. But when Esosa's name was announced, the drums paused for a heartbeat, as if even they wished to watch. She stepped forward. Her steps were slow, deliberate, graceful. The crowd roared, clapping, shouting her name, yet beneath her wrapper, pain pressed like a hidden thorn. She swallowed it down, smiling through the fire in her body. Prince Osaigbovo's eyes never left her. As the ceremony stretched on, the moneylender grew restless. He had expected her to stumble, to falter, to be dismissed. Instead, she commanded the courtyard. The crowd adored her. Even Obanosa tilted his head as if measuring her carefully, so the lender decided to act. He pushed through the crowd until he stood near the chief's table. Raising his voice, he called out, "Great Oba, I must speak. Before your son chooses, let the truth be known." Gasps spread like fire. Guards stepped forward. Obanosa lifted a hand. "Let him speak." The lender pointed at Esosa. "She stands here in beauty, but it is borrowed beauty. She sold her body to the knife of the city. She owes me for it still. If you crown her, you crown a lie." The courtyard erupted in noise, shouts, gasps, cries. Some villagers nodded, whispering, "We suspected." Others shook their heads. Esosa's knees trembled. Her secret had been dragged into the open. Tears stung her eyes. She looked at Prince Osaigbovo, but his face was unreadable. The Oba's staff struck the ground once, silencing the noise. His voice was like iron. "Truth is heavy. Let us weigh it." He turned to Esosa. "Speak." Her lips trembled. She could have denied it. She could have invented a story. But in that moment, she remembered Emide's words. "Better nothing than your life." She remembered the pain pressing against her side, the nights she cried, the lies she carried. So she lifted her chin and said clearly, "It is true." The courtyard gasped again. Esosa's tears spilled, but her voice grew stronger. "I was mocked all my life for what I did not have. I wanted to be seen, to be valued, to have a chance at the crown. I went to the city. I borrowed money. I changed myself. But Oba, Prince, people of the kingdom, my heart did not change. My love for this land did not change. My spirit is the same as Esosa you ignored before. I stand here flawed, but true." Her words fell heavy into the silence. For a moment, no one spoke. Prince Osaigbovo stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried to every corner of the courtyard. "You," he said, his eyes on the lender, "are owed your money. That debt will be settled." He turned to Esosa. "And you have shown me something more than shape. You have shown me courage." He looked at his father. "This is my choice." The drums thundered louder than they had in years. Chiefs rose to their feet. Villagers gasped and cheered. Esosa stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. The Oba's gaze lingered on her, long and piercing. Finally, he nodded. "If this is the prince's choice, then let it be." The crown of beads was brought forward. As it touched Esosa's head, the weight of it pressed deeper than the ache in her body. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer of thanks and regret at once. The moneylender shouted again, but Obanosa silenced him. "You will be paid in full from the royal treasury, but you will never again use people's desperation to shame them before the crowd." The guards dragged the man out as the people roared. Prince Osaigbovo took Esosa's hand. His eyes softened for the first time. "You sought love the wrong way, but you stood in truth today. That is why you will stand beside me." Emide wept with joy in the crowd. Etohan bowed her head, learning the hardest lesson of envy. Mothers pulled their daughters close, whispering, "Beauty is nothing without honesty. Courage is the crown no one can take away." As the celebration rose, Esosa felt both joy and pain. joy that her dream had come true, pain from the wound she carried within. She whispered to herself, "I got the crown, but let this crown remind me that nothing borrowed lasts, only truth does." Life in the palace became a new chapter for Queen Esosa. Though the crown sat proudly on her head, the quiet ache in her body still followed her into her new life. But Prince Osaigbovo saw beyond her smiles. He noticed her winces, her restless nights, her silence after long walks. Instead of scolding or ignoring, he reached for her hand and said, "You gave me honesty. Let me give you wholeness." Not long after, he arranged for her to travel abroad, where skilled doctors corrected what had been poorly done. The surgery was safe, careful, and complete. This time she healed without fear. Each day she grew stronger, lighter, more at peace with herself. When she returned, she was not only the queen with presence, she was the queen with health. Prince Osaigbovo never hid his affection. He admired her beauty, yes, but he loved her courage even more. He loved her enough to carry her burdens, enough to ensure her scars became stories of healing, not shame. Together they built a palace not just of walls and gold, but of love, respect, and truth. Moral of the story: insecurity can blind us, but honesty can save us. Beauty that is borrowed fades, but courage and truth remain. True love does not mock your scars. It helps you heal them. And no matter how much the world laughs at you, your greatest crown will always be the strength you find when you choose truth over lies. And that, family, brings us to the end of this powerful tale. Esosa's journey reminds us that chasing approval through insecurity can cost us everything, but standing in truth and allowing love to heal us can change our story forever. What do you think about Esosa's decision? Do you believe Prince Osaigbovo was right to crown her despite her secret? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading every one of them. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales by Emade for more life-changing stories filled with lessons, suspense, and hope. Thank you for watching. And remember, true beauty begins where courage starts. See you in our next story.